Saints head coach Kellen Moore, his introductory press conference, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to watch the entire press conference. We're going to react along the way. Now, I do have to say it is early in the morning here in New Orleans. If you hear noises coming from outside of the studio, there is listen, I'm not going to mince words here. There's a rabid homeless man outside of the downtown studios screeching. He's been screeching for hours. Is he absolutely loose as a goose off of Fent? Is he, just excited about Kellen Moore? I don't know. We're all excited about Kellen Moore, but you don't see me on the sidewalk screaming and using the bathroom on walls. So if you hear something, that's what it is. My apologies. Downtown New Orleans is downtown New Orleans. Okay, let's go ahead and get on with the press conference. I can't wait to listen to this. I am absolutely fired up. I've got a mason jar full of the just strongest coffee I could find. Let's go.
Recognize a few of you from the last couple of weeks.
Me?
First, I just want to thank everyone for coming for this awesome opportunity.
Absolutely.
This is the start of an incredible place. This place truly is a special place for my family, for the opportunities we've had the last couple of weeks to win a Super Bowl in the Caesars Superdome, and to now become the head football coach of the New Orleans Saints. This is such an incredible place, and we can't wait to make it home, and we truly feel honored. Mrs. Benson, thank you so much for the wonderful welcome to New Orleans for our entire family. Your leadership obviously is evident very quickly how special this place truly is. I want to start by saying how thankful and blessed I am to have the best football family I can possibly have. For my wife, Julie, she's the rock star. I couldn't do this without her. She's made this entire football journey. She's been on it with me all the way from a player to a coach, and I couldn't ask to be more fortunate to have her. For Kyler, Hallie, we got Maddie and Beckham as well. They make our life a whole lot of fun. We got 4 little ones, and they enjoy this ride as well. I can't begin to express how thankful I am for the opportunity to be the head coach of the Saints, but really that dream started a long time ago, being a kid from Prosser, Washington, and my dad was our head football coach, and so that was my foundation as a coach. I always wanted to be a football coach. My goal was to be a Prosser Mustang first and foremost, and I appreciate everything that he did for me. I think most importantly, the foundation of myself as a football coach really comes from him. And my mom was an elementary school principal. This moment, as much as I appreciate it for ourselves, this is their moment as well. And so I love them very much.
It's a family man. Football guy, family man, good values. I like what I'm hearing so far.
I want to thank every coach, teammate, player, and mentor that helped me along this way. From Boise State, Detroit Lions, Dallas Cowboys, Los Angeles Chargers, and especially the Philadelphia Eagles. Each and every one of these people shaped me, allowed me to become the coach that I am. Specifically in Philadelphia, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and Nick Sirianni. Thank you for the opportunity to win a world championship with you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting whenever people say, like I've heard, we've covered a bunch of stuff recently, like Stephen A. Smith and ESPN. They talk a lot about the Cowboys with Kellen Moore, and they talk a lot about what he did right, what he did wrong. In life, I'll tell you this is just a life situation, is as you go through life and you have different experiences, those experiences can be absolutely world-shaping. Like you can go through a job for 6 months or a year, and it can completely change how you view the world or your profession or yourself as a person or whatever. So it's very disingenuous to talk about Dallas and leave out LA and Philly, or talk about Philly but leave out Dallas and LA. You got to look at Kellen Moore's entire scope of what he's done so far. And the fact that he has 3 different stops, like that's something with, Ben Johnson and Joe Brady and some of these other guys where, like Ben Johnson, you can focus in on the last couple of years in Detroit. Okay, but what if we saw him in Tennessee? Or what if we saw him in San Francisco or somewhere else? Could he adapt? Would he be the same? What would it look like? Joe Brady, we know a year and a half in Buffalo. Sweet. What if he went to Jacksonville? What if he went and tried to be the OC for the Jets or the Giants or the Seahawks or whoever else? Like, does it look the same? Can he adapt? Is he having success? With Kellen Moore, you see multiple stops, multiple iterations of him, multiple adaptations of him. And that's another, like, for being 36 And to have that much experience and to have that much, like those destinations on his resume, unreal.
Finally, as we went through this interview process, I feel very fortunate that I got to go and interview with multiple teams. It became very clear what made this organization really special, and it was the leadership.
Yes.
Each interaction grew more and more confident in the opportunity that this presented. The opportunity to team up with Mickey Loomis, one of the winningest general managers in the National Football League history, was a perfect opportunity for myself. The other leadership within his group, Kai Harley, Jeff Ireland.
Kellen, you better not start a YouTube channel, pal. You keep talking about Mickey Loomis like that, you're going to have some angry comments. Take it from me. Now, listen, I love Mickey like a brother, okay? And I like that Kellen said this. Like, I mean, Kellen did his homework, which I have no doubt about. Maybe he watched my videos. I have no idea. But no doubt about it, here are some hard facts for you. Some good old-fashioned facts. The New Orleans Saints in the last 20 years... 20 years exactly, pretty much, are one of the most winningest franchises in the NFL. Not 2 years, not 3 years, not 5 years, not 10 years. The last 20 years. Now, that's kind of crazy to think about, all right? They are destroying franchises like the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to overall success. Wins, you can look at regular season wins. You can look at playoff success. You can look at Super Bowls. You can look at conference championships made, whatever. They are in the top percent in the NFL. So I know the Saints are on down times right now, but do not get it twisted. If you are looking at this thing through a big lens of 20 years, it is one of the best, one of the most relevant, one of the most consistent franchises in the NFL, which it's crazy to frame it like that because before that, you've got from 67 to 2004, where they're pretty much a complete laughingstock, where they're pretty much a complete dumpster, brown paper bag, whatever. And then you have the group now that has basically thrown away 20 years of success, and the group now who is sitting here saying, this team sucks, I can't keep watching this team's a dumpster, this team is this team is that, when, 5 years ago? The last 2 years of Drew Brees and Sean Payton, the team won 13 games and 12 games. I mean, you got to give the team credit when you look at it from the last 2 decades. Kellen is correct. Like, he is joining one of the most winningest teams in the NFL.
Ireland, Michael Parrington, Randy Mueller. Can't wait to get started. Really, really excited about this opportunity. I'm so thankful for it. We have an exciting future for New Orleans football. Our number one goal is to create an environment that allows every player, coach, and staff member to be their best. And this is the greatest team sport in the world for a reason, because it takes everyone. It takes everyone. It's truly an honor and opportunity that.
Good example of what I was talking about. Sirianni was preaching that all playoffs. He must have said it 1,000 times after the Super Bowl. I guarantee you that's not from Mike McCarthy. I guarantee you that's not from his time in LA. What he's saying right now is molded from what Sirianni was saying the past 12 months in Philadelphia.
Not many have. We know that when we do this, when we build a brand of football that we're all appreciative of, it's going to be a smart, a fast, and a physical football team.
Love
and
it.
I know that our style, that Who Dat Nation will be proud of, and they will rally behind. We have a tremendous advantage in the NFL because of the phenomenal fan base that we have.
True.
Because of the home field advantage that the Caesars Superdome provides. And I can attest to the daunting challenge that when you come into the Superdome as a visiting team, the challenges that you're going to have. Can't wait to get started. Who Dat Nation, appreciate you. Can't wait to go. Here we go.
I'm about to run through a brick wall. I'm about to go do Oklahoma drills with the Fent zombie screaming outside of the window. I am fired up. God, let's go, Kellen. I'd stand up, but I'm not wearing pants.
Open it up for questions now. Who wants to lead off?
Yeah, Kellen, just what are your first, 72 hours here? Like, kind of what's on the agenda? How do you get started? What's that process?
Oh, real quick. That's Nick Underhill. The video, the backdrop, a bunch of different people recorded this press conference, obviously. I'm using New Orleans Football's video because they have the best audio and video quality by far. Like, it is not even close. So shout out New Orleans Football per usual. Go over there, subscribe, get involved with the guys over there.
Transition coming into this.
Yeah, obviously it's been a phenomenal opportunity to get back into New Orleans, really to get to know the building. First and foremost, there's phenomenal people throughout this building, and I think that's the great joy that the first few days provide. Really connecting with the building, throughout all the support staff, the players, the coaches. That'll be a process as we go through this building but it's been a really fun opportunity.
Kellen, this team is obviously at a state with a little bit of an older roster where a choice could be made to continue trying to win, consider rebuilding. During the process, did they make it clear that you would get to have a lot of input in deciding that, or did they kind of let you know this is the direction we're going?
I think certainly the great joy that as you went through this process, it became very evident was this is a collaborative effort here. This is a team, this is a group that works really well together. We're excited to go through this journey. Obviously, we'll begin the process of evaluating the player side of this and building a coaching staff and doing it the right way moving forward. It's going to be a really fun process.
So Mike is basically asking if he has any input or will have any input in this idea of trimming the roster or winning now or signing a free agent or any, like, the roadmap for the Saints. We've talked about that a million times, where the Saints are at kind of a crossroads where they have to decide, okay, are we trying to quote unquote win now, or are we trying to quote unquote rebuild? What does that look like? The rebuild, you're probably trimming some of the roster, you're probably moving off of certain players. So Kellen's answer is basically like, yeah, it is a conversation. We will be taking that, whatever the approach is, we will be doing it, hand in hand, and he'll have input. It's basically what he's saying.
Do you have, I can lay out the plan right now, but do you have like a preference for the concept of rebuilding, getting younger, or like trying not to overhaul too much?
I think certainly we're going to compete for this division. We have a great opportunity in the NFC South, and we're going to focus on that while building this team the right way.
That is who the hell is this guy? What's going on here? Before I skip Boris 82 AI developer here, what are we doing here? Are we going to skip it? Okay, look, that's a tricky question. No coach, certainly not a new coach, is going to say, nah, man, we're going to suck the first year, but then we'll be cool. Don't worry about it. And I think in a way that it's also disingenuous, because the coaches probably believe we are trying to win. Like, even if we are rebuilding, even if we are trimming some of the older players or some of the heavy contracts or whatever, we are still going to try and win the games. We are still going to try and win the division, compete for a division. We're not going to empty the cupboards, if you will, to where we have nothing, right? Like, no coach is going to say that. Now, on the flip side, he's not going to sit here and say we can compete for a Super Bowl year one, we're ready to roll, whatever. But I think that's an honest answer, where, yeah, they are going to have to financially do some things. The team is getting older. We have the obvious roadmap. The obvious roadmap is within the next 2 seasons, 2027. I keep harping on this. 2027, we will be the youngest team in the NFL. We will have the most cap room in the NFL. Those two things are happening, all right? Whether it's agreed upon or not, it's just the way it's going to work. Ryan Ramczyk, Taysom Hill, Derek Carr, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, all those players, contracts over or retiring, or being released in Derek Carr's case. It's happening. So when that happens, you get younger. When that happens, you get the contracts off the books. So it's happening. All right? We already know what's going to happen. We already know the roadmap. We see what's taking place. Kellen's job is to instill his identity, instill his culture, get to know the building, as he says, get his brand of football, like he said, established with the players here, try and win along the way, and then when you're ready to roll in 2027, somewhere around there, okay, let's take the next jump. Let's try and compete for the NFC.
Kellen, are you starting like today or tonight, tomorrow, or are you going back and participating in the parade so you won a championship with those guys? Or
Oh yeah, this is yesterday. Okay, so this press conference was done Thursday. Friday, Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day, is the Super Bowl parade in Philadelphia. Good question.
And you'll come back. What's your schedule?
He's got to go.
There's been
right?
a little bit of travel this week, which is all good. Yeah, so obviously had an opportunity to be here. We'll go back for the parade tomorrow in
he's gotta
Philadelphia,
go.
and then quickly
Yeah.
get back here and
Cool.
get going.
If I can follow up, we've heard about you for a long time, and people had seen pictures and video, but this is kind of the first time the passionate fan base gets to hear from you without maybe getting too deep into football. Who are you? Like, what's your favorite? People are going to want to know everything about you and your family. So is there any more insight besides wanting to be a coach like your father that you can kind of tell the people watching right now about yourself?
Yeah. Faith, family, and football is what this thing is all about. And
God
those
bless.
priorities will never
Put
change.
it on a shirt.
I think when you get to team up with special people, you get to do special things. And I'm really, really excited about that opportunity. I want to lead this team the right way, or surround myself with tremendous leaders on the player side, on the coaching side. Again, this is a great opportunity.
Kellen, how do you view, a lot was made in the process about the Saints salary cap situation and where it stands now. Did that give you any concern in the process? And how would you say you view where the salary cap situation stands right now?
Yes, certainly the opportunity to go through the interview process allows us to have those conversations, and quickly, again, it's evident. The leadership here is tremendous. They're best in the business from a business side of this operation, and we feel very comfortable with where we're going.
Kellen does have a interesting viewpoint of that because Philadelphia does the exact same thing the Saints do financially. They also restructure contracts, kick the can down the road. They try and maximize their window. Now, I don't know how in tuned he was as the offensive coordinator to those conversations, but this idea, this strategy that the Saints have is certainly not foreign to Kellen.
Kellen, how has that helped you out as far as playing the game at the highest level, playing in the NFL for 6 years as a coach? How has that helped you?
Yeah, certainly anytime you can lean on experiences as a player or a coach, tremendous opportunity. And certainly the coaches and the players that I was around, I learned a lot from those guys. And certainly as we go through this process, anytime you can lean on those experiences, you've been in those players' shoes, you've dealt with the challenges that they deal with, you can lean into those experiences.
It's kind of crazy when you think about 50-3 as a college quarterback, 6 years in the NFL, 5 years as an offensive coordinator, and he's 36. Won a Super Bowl, 3 different stops. That's nuts. That is a lot of life in 36 years. I mean, that is a crazy resume for a 36-year-old.
You mentioned talking about the cap situation. One of those cap hits and guys prevalent with that is obviously quarterback Derek Carr.
Here we go.
What do you think about him when looking at his tape, and do you view him as being the week 1 starter for this team with you as head coach?
Yeah, Derek's a tremendous quarterback in this league. I've had so much respect for him, the journey that he's been on. He's a starter in this league. He's a premier player in this league. He's had a great journey, obviously going from Fresno State to the Raiders and now here. Really excited to team up with him and go through this process. And so just like any player on this roster, I just got here a few days ago, and I'm excited to go through this journey with all of them.
You got a chance to spend the whole last week in New Orleans and went to the Pelicans game last night. Did you get a sense of how much this team means to the city? Were you able to just get a grasp of that?
It's very quickly evident. This is a tremendous city. The hospitality and the environment that they provided for the Super Bowl was really special. You quickly saw what makes this place an amazing city. And, as we've gone through this process, it just becomes more and more evident. We truly can't wait for this to become home.
I mean, God, the ads, this is unbelievable. Can you imagine going from the Super Bowl, where New Orleans is at its absolute best, parades, everything's shiny, everything's beautiful, the stars are out, celebrities, and then you go to the Pelicans game, and you watch the Pelicans get rolled by the Kings. They're down 16 at one point. They lose by 8 or 9 or whatever it was. I mean, you talk about a factory of sadness. I would have not sent him there. His first night, I would have said, brother, we'll go to the movies or something. We'll go to the aquarium. We'll go to the aquarium. We'll pet some stingrays. Remember, guys, 2 fingers, swipe, not poke. Okay? We'll do that. But we're not going to the Pelicans game. Jesus Christ. So, shout out for him for surviving the Pels game, but damn.
You told us when we interviewed you at media night that you went to the Manning Passing Academy. Has Archie, has Drew, have people reached out to you, congratulating you, giving you tips on how it's going to be here?
It's what makes this place really special. Is you can just tell everyone who's touched this place is still invested. And, from the Manning family to Drew, so many people that have been a part of this place. That's what makes this place special.
Kellen, last week you said you don't like you like the defense that you don't like going against, but you didn't want to answer because you're going against Spags and didn't want to give them any tips. What is the type of defense that you hate going against, and what would you like? What are the characteristics you'd like in your defense?
Yeah, that identity is still the same. We want to be a smart team. We got to play really smart situational football. We want to be able to play fast. Guys, when they're fast and free and confident, they play at a really high level. And then obviously we want to be a really physical football team. We recognize I'm a quarterback guy, and I love the quarterback position, but this game has so much impact on the offense and defensive lines, and that's really truly how you control games and build this thing the right way.
As far as putting defensive coordinator search, several interviews. You have several candidates who plan to interview?
Yes, we'll go through a true process for the defensive coordinator spot. We're really excited to go through that over the course of the next few days, and we'll find an excellent candidate.
That's going to be great. I mean, I can't wait for that. Like, what a time to be alive. I mean, it's just a beautiful time to be alive, ladies and gentlemen, where we get Kellen Moore, and now we get a defensive coordinator search into the top 10 draft pick. Like, damn. I mean, Tulane starting off the baseball season this weekend against Lamar. I mean, it's just a beautiful time besides the Pelicans. It's just a great time. Fantastic stuff.
That include, I know you've been around a couple guys who've run 3-4s in the last couple of weeks. Interview people who might run a 3-4 and people who might run a 4-3.
Yeah, we'll certainly explore both sides of that.
I don't know if you could hear it. Mike was asking if he has a preference between a 3-4 defense and a 4-3 defense.
I think at the end of the day, we'll find the perfect candidate for this opportunity, and we'll be really excited about it.
Kel, how far are you in putting together the staff? Do you have a timeline in place? Like, would you like to see the whole staff together before the combine? Is that important?
Certainly, we just want to do it the right way, and
Yeah.
we want to go through a process, and we understand that when the opportunity presents itself, it'll be right, and we're very excited about that. Obviously, we know we're into the middle of February, but there's plenty of excellent candidates out there. We're really excited, the ones that we've talked to already and the ones we'll talk to in the future. It'll be a great opportunity.
Kellen, you've been a bit of a journeyman the last 3 years. Dallas, Los Angeles, and then Philly. How have those last 3 years really prepared you to take on this opportunity?
I was fortunate to be in Dallas for 8 years. Tremendous place, tremendous opportunity. I went there from a player to a coach. Going to Los Angeles and Philadelphia allowed me to get out of my comfort zone. I think that's really, really important as you grow as a coach or a player. You got to get out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, put yourself in different situations, and both those opportunities allowed me to grow. Tremendous people at both spots, and I'm forever thankful for that.
Your background is important. After the game, Kellen, let's run this back.
Is there space there?
Did you just take that as kind of like a lighthearted compliment for the good work you did, or were they really trying to talk you out of something? And what goes into deciding to leave a situation like that where you're coming off a championship?
First and foremost, I love Nick. Forever thankful for the opportunity to team up with him through this past year. Tremendous leader. Tremendous head football coach in the National Football League. He won a world championship for a reason, and I feel so thankful for that. As obviously we went through this process, an opportunity to be a head coach is really special in this league, and the more we went through the process, it became very clear that this one was going to be a really special one if it presented itself. And so obviously Nick and I had plenty of conversations as we went through this journey. He was very supportive of it. Certainly he would love for us to team up again, but he understood that this was going to be a special place for us.
I mean, that's something too. Like I was talking about with the experiences. Kellen has worked with 4 coaches and head coaches in the NFL: Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, Brandon Staley, and Nick Sirianni. All very different, and all in different situations. Garrett was in a horrible situation, got fired. McCarthy, coming in, establishing himself, the most experienced out of all the coaches we're talking about. Staley, another bad situation, but also he's seeing things a little different. He's a little younger, more, a little more innovative than the previous 2. And then Sirianni, which is a completely different coach, but with a tremendous amount of success and who goes after it a very different way. So think about how much time Kellen Moore is spending with each of those coaches, how many conversations they're having, what he's seeing. He's seeing every speech that's given in the locker room. He's seeing every practice. He's seeing every draft and combine and whatever else, and he's breaking down players with all of those coaches and seeing all of those things. So I love that. Even though Garrett, McCarthy, and Staley aren't great, I love that he went through that experience with them and then capped it off with Nick Sirianni, who, love him or hate him, has had a tremendous amount of success. So that's a fantastic cap for Kellen's experience to where, okay, now he's ready to go be his own head coach.
Your background as a quarterback, how much has that helped you really become a head coach at the age
you already
you
answer
currently
this?
are?
Certainly viewing it from the quarterback lens is a very valuable piece. It's the hardest position in sports for a reason.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of responsibility associated with that player.
You also got to know every position. You got to know every position, what they're doing on every play, both offensively and defensively.
Tied into every single player on the football team. I was fortunate to be able to transition quickly from playing right into coaching in Dallas. Allowed me to, kind of go through that process rather quickly. But again, great people, great support as I've gone through that. And, again, I think a lot of guys in this league, if they've gone through this journey, a lot of quarterbacks have become coaches, and there's probably a reason for it.
Kellen, how close do you feel like this team is to becoming a contender?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that was one of the attractive pieces of this is, I think this is a talented roster. We played here week 3. We took it down to a minute left to finally score a touchdown when I was in Philadelphia. It was a really challenging game. And so throughout the season, you've seen it. Obviously, injuries were a challenge this year, and those things sometimes are challenging, uncontrollable circumstances. And so we recognize there's so much good going on here. We want to embrace the good, don't lose any of the good while building this thing the right way.
Smart answer, because as we all know, the Saints were rocking and effing rolling early on, first 2 games. And then week 3, they are beating Philadelphia with 1 minute left, okay? The Saints lose to Washington on a last-second play. They come down to the wire against the Rams. Were the Saints good last year? No. The defense was an absolute sieve, a lot of injuries all over the place, but you cannot deny that there aren't, like he said, there isn't good. Like, there is good in there. So how do you keep that good? How do you harness that good while rebuilding and while moving some pieces around to establish a foundation for a future? That is attractive for a coach. And, we said this in the process, but the Saints roster is not devoid of talent. It is shallow, certainly when you account for all the injuries, but it's not completely devoid of talent. You don't almost beat the world champions. You don't take Washington to the limit with, at that point, the entire team was hurt for the Saints. You don't do all that. You don't take the Rams, to the distance either. You don't do all that without having some kind of good on the roster. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that, the Saints are at the same level as the Eagles or the same level of the Rams or the same levels of the Commanders or whatever. But to compete with those teams, there's something in the building that can be harnessed.
Kellen, there's the old saying about X's and O's or Jimmy's and Joe's, but what is it about this Saints offensive roster that gives you confidence you can replicate what you did in Philly?
Tremendous investment on the front line. Again, as we talked about offensive and defensive lines, they're going to have such an impact on games. They're the pulse of your football team. We got playmakers in multiple skill positions. Very, very excited about that. On the back end on defense as well. Invested in those guys to have those pieces as well. And so I think we're in an excellent place to build moving forward.
That kind of gives you an idea of where he might go in the draft. I know it was only a 2-sentence answer, but obviously his time in Philly showed him how important the offensive line and the defensive line are. The Saints' weak spot last year was the defensive line, especially the run D. Offensive line is still a work in progress, so sitting at 9, if there is a premier defensive lineman like Mason Graham, if there's a premier offensive lineman sitting there, it might tell you where he's going with that. And you might think, he's a quarterback, whatever, he's going to go playmaker, he's going to go skill position. Again, factor in what he just saw in Philly. Factor in what he just saw work. What worked in Philadelphia? An absolutely dominant defensive line and an absolutely dominant offensive line. So I would not be surprised at all if he tries to solidify the trenches early on. And by early on, I mean in the first round.
What do you think needs to be different to kind of build that consistent winner here?
Yeah, I think that's the excellent process that we're going to go through. I think it's going to, again, teaming up with the right people, teaming up with people who know this is going to take a lot of work. This is going to be a really hard challenge, starting with the offseason program. But we're going to build it the right way. We're going to go through that process, and we'll build it once we get together.
Kellen, as far as strategy, what comes into play? Explain to the fans maybe how you utilize motion as far as from your perspective as a play caller, and then also from the quarterback position. And obviously, in different scenarios, the run-pass option. We might run a little more, might pass a little more. Just talk a little bit about that.
I think the biggest thing from an offensive perspective is you got to stress the defense, whether it be tempo, which we'll use a lot of. We like to use a lot of tempo every place that I've been. We'll use shifts and motions and we huddle, but we want to stress the defense. Now, whether we have to throw it 50 times or run it 15 times, I really don't care. However, we got to win a football game. We'll do that based off who we have available to us and who's on our roster. But we want to be a team that stresses the defense, challenges them, utilizes our entire roster, the depth that we have, and take advantage of all these different players' superpowers.
Kellen, why do you think you're ready for this opportunity? You know, your first head coaching job. What are you going to bring to this position, and why do you think you're ready for this?
Certainly, you know, I've gone through this process for a long time. As a player, I always anticipated wanting to be a coach, and so those notes that I took each and every day was, you know, would I do this the same way? Would I do this different? And again, each and every one of those notes built me up to who I am today. Tremendous support, tremendous mentors that have gone through this process. Again, when you go to different places, you get to strengthen yourself, you get to challenge yourself, get yourself out of your comfort zone, play different styles of football. And ultimately, I'm really, really excited to have an opportunity to lead this team, be in front of this entire group, and support these players as they go through these challenges they inevitably will.
At 36, I have two questions, I apologize. At 36, you're now the youngest head coach in the NFL. Do you lean into that maybe there isn't like a generational divide like there may be with other hires or even that you've experienced? And I do have a follow-up.
Yeah. Start with that one. Tremendous value, obviously. There'll be certain players that are more closely associated with my age, and I think that's tremendous value. I've been in those shoes for a number of years now. Being a 31-year-old offensive coordinator, you know, that first time, half the room was the guys that I was teammates with 2 years prior to, and so I think there's tremendous value in being able to lean into those experiences, having been in their shoes in a relatively recent time. Again, I think it's a great opportunity.
My follow-up was more lighthearted here. We have kind of unique culture here. Have you and your family experienced, have you kids had king cake yet? Have y'all had a meal? And just, let me help you out. Please don't say your first meal is Chipotle.
We are so excited to embrace the food side of this wonderful community. Certainly we've had a couple king cakes already. Yeah, so we're ready.
So let me go back to the generational thing. A lot is made about the age and all that, but I think if you know what you're talking about and you can instill that, I think the players will respect you. I don't think the players see him and say, oh, he's 36, who cares? You know, like they probably see that Super Bowl ring. They probably see what Jalen Hurts just did. And they say, okay, I'm listening. I'm willing to listen. And if they start seeing his process and stuff starts making sense, who cares? You know, 36, who cares? And there is probably a benefit to that, to be able to connect with that generation, you know, that you're closerly, new word here, new word unlocked, but that you're closer kind of connected to. So he'll be able to, you know, make a connection there that maybe a 60-something-year-old coach wouldn't be able to. Not that there's a negative or a positive in the ages, but that is something that will be, you know, a benefit to him.
I'll give you two questions.
You mentioned your father, Tom, right?
Yep.
And, how is he doing, and what does he think about all this?
He's excited. I mean, my dad was a high school football coach, and that for our family, for my brother to choose coaching, for myself to choose coaching, shows how much he meant to us. My brother's the offense coordinator at Missouri. He's had a tremendous career in this profession, and he's been along it the entire way. You know, he's there at every single game that he can be at, whether it be my brother's game or my game. You know, football's meant a lot to our family.
Two things. Speak to how you managed to adapt your play calling philosophy to the roster you've had, or we've seen you pass heavy, we've seen you really run heavy like last year.
Yep.
Like, why is that something that you kind of introduced?
I think it's just important. Every roster is different. Every challenge is going to be different. You know, throughout the season, we're going to have obstacles. You know, we may lose a player. We may have to adjust. And I think that's really, really important. Ultimately, we got to find out what our players do best and put them in those positions to be successful. And, you know, I think we got tremendous talent on this team. I'm excited to team up with these guys, to get to know them as people, get to know them as players, and then, again, provide that opportunity for them.
Are there any inherent challenges to that, or is that actually like the easiest route to it, is just taking what you guys do best and going with that?
I think that's the fun challenge. You know, that's the fun challenge that you get to team up with. Certainly there's going to be certain philosophies, identities that I believe in very, very strongly. But again, I think it's really, really important that as we build this, there's going to be a process. You're going to go through OTAs. You're going to go through training camp, and we're going to, figure each other out more and more each and every day that we spend. And, those clear identities will present themselves as the season goes.
Kellen, a couple.
I know you said you've been bilingual, multilingual in so many different systems. How many times have you used something that was predominantly the wide zone, Shanahan, blocking scheme? Obviously, they implemented that here, and they have a lot of personnel that fit that. Is that something you've done much in the past?
We've done that at various spots. Certainly in Dallas, there was a lot more of an outside zone emphasis there. But obviously, flexibility, I think, is really important. I think as we've gone through this journey in the NFL, you got to have a diverse run game. You got to be able to do a lot of different things. You got to be able to challenge the defense in multiple looks. Again, we've been more of a downhill gap run team in Philadelphia. There's tremendous advantages to that, and I think we'll have an opportunity to blend those two worlds together.
I mean, what a fantastic place to be in as a player or a fan of the team, to where Kellen is telling you, like, we're going to create this hybrid of everything, and we're going to use everything to win. We're not going to be a zone run team only. We're not going to be a gap. We're not going to be, 11 personnel or 12. We're not going to be this. We're not going to be heavy. We're not going to pigeonhole ourselves. We're going to be a little bit of everything. We're going to have everything at our fingertips, and we're going to use what we deem necessary to win games and stress the defense. I love that. I don't care. I don't really have a preference. Like a lot of people say, well, you want a Shanahan tree, or you want a this tree, or you want a that tree. I ain't an arborist, okay? I'm not worried about the trees. I'm worried about the wins and losses. I'm worried about the success. I'm worried about the yards per play. And if one game we're in the shotgun and we're throwing it 50 times to win, cool. If the next game we're power I, halfback, ISO, let it rip, and we're winning that way, cool. Whatever. And the fact that Kellen is kind of creating this new hybrid thing that he has going on here of all of his different stops, the fact that that's his approach, I'm all for it. And he talks about like basically having core values of his offense, which tempo and everything he's mentioned. If that's the core values and everything else is just kind of fit into that, love it.
And following up on Derek, do you view that as you guys have a decision to make at quarterback, or you view it as Derek Carr as quarterback?
I view it as Derek Carr is a tremendous starting quarterback in this league. We're fortunate to have him, and we're excited to go through this process, as we build this roster together. Again, I'm meeting these guys for the first time the last few days. I'm really excited to meet more of them, and this will be a lot of fun.
All right, so I think I don't want to make too much out of this. They asked him two questions now about Derek Carr. On one hand, I think Carr is out. I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious that he's out. On the other hand, Kellen Moore has had this job and been around this team or whatever for like 2 days. Okay. I think they understand, and there's probably been conversations during the interview process of like, hey, look, here's our options with Derek Carr. Here's what we're going to think. Here's what we're going to do. But there is still a process to be had with Derek, and that probably will have conversations with Kellen and Derek, that sit down conversations, and so the story is not over, even though I think I think the writing's on the wall. But I would consider these answers non-committal. I would consider these answers respectful. Right? Derek Carr is good. Derek Carr is a starter in this league. Derek Carr is whatever. We're gonna go through the process. I think that's him saying, like, he's a good player. Will he be our starting quarterback? I don't know. Will he be, one way or the other? So you can kind of write whatever narrative you want with these answers. I would phrase it as non-committal. I would phrase it as he understands the situation, but the situation hasn't really played itself out to a point to where he can take a stance. It would be insane for him to say, that's my starting quarterback. Just like it would be insane for him to say, nope, we're going to cut him. Because as of right now, Derek Carr is the starting quarterback for the Saints. As of right now. But is that just in legalese? Is that just in contracts? Or, we'll see. We will see. But I think overall, good answer. Overall, non-committal. good to go.
Any position that you would look at and say, this is a foundation pillar and that guy is just absolutely locked in? I know it's all about competition, or is it, I'm a new coach and everything's open for competition?
Yeah, we'll let that play itself out. Obviously, we know the tremendous leadership that this team has, the experience, the veteran players. That's a great advantage to us. That's a tremendous advantage to us. Again, we've invested in the offensive line, which is a huge, important piece for us. To me, that's the energy of your entire football team, and so I'm excited to team up with those guys.
Kellen, you talked about the Week 3 matchup.
Could you just kind of expand on what you mean by like smart football players? Like when a player is smart, what kind of attributes do they have? What do you look for?
Yeah, I think smart football players, understand the situation first and foremost. They understand situational football. They understand how to play the position. They can apply the lessons that you teach them. We don't have to have a bunch of guys to go to Ivy Leagues. That's not what the NFL is. But, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to find how these guys learn, how these guys grow, to lean into that. Again, when you surround yourself with a bunch of smart football players, it's going to allow your team to really flourish.
There is nothing I love more than situational football. That I like. If there's one thing, if I could teach a class like a philosophy class, it would be situational football. That is where games are won and lost. That is what separates coaches. It really is. Like 3rd and 5, the way that two coaches, approach that, you can tell who's trying to win the situation. You can tell who understands the situation, and you can tell who's just completely lost. Like Pete Carmichael, opening up the games, the first possession of the games. That is a situational football. The Saints did not score an opening possession of a game for like 16 weeks when Carmichael, his last year as OC. Like those kind of things. What you do on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 8, like what you do in all those spots, that is what the game is made up of. That is why I cannot stand whenever analysts go to ESPN.com and just sort stats by rushing yards per game or yards per game or whatever, because you're taking all the context out. In today's NFL, like the context, the analytics, the numbers, all that, the situation itself, all of that matters. All of that is a huge part of today's game. And that is what makes winners, and that is what makes losers. So the fact that he's stressing situational awareness, situational football, I love it.
Kellen, you said that you're excited to go through the process with Derek Carr and the roster. Can you tell us
another Carr question?
Can you describe what the process is?
I think first and foremost is just to get to meet these guys, get to know them as people. And as we build this thing, as we go through the offseason program, obviously we'll go through that process as far as football players, and we'll build it the right way. But again, I'm just excited to meet these guys first and foremost.
Kelly, you talked about that Week 3 matchup against the Saints when you were the Eagles. How much did that factor into your decision to want to become the head coach? And also, nobody asked you, but have you picked at Derek Carr about beating him back in college yet, or what?
The Week 3 game, very evident. I mean, I've been here a few times as the road team. It's a really hard place to play. It's a really hard place to play, and you felt it each and every day. We felt fortunate on Week 3 to come out with a win in a 2-minute drive. As far as Derek and Fresno State, obviously we had a fun game one year. Played Fresno State over the years as a Boise State Bronco, and so we'll certainly share a few laughs about that.
Kellen, you talked about the off season. How much input will you have where you have training camp? Do you like to stay home or like to get the players away?
Good question.
As far as you're maybe involved with that.
Yeah, we'll go through those conversations when we need to. Obviously, right now the priority is the people, and then we'll figure out the process as we go.
At what point during the search did you feel good that you were the front runner for the job, say, or like how did that process go?
Yeah, again, just 2 opportunities. You have a Zoom interview and then you have a formal interview. Both excellent opportunities, I think, for the Saints and for myself just to go through that process. And so, the rules are structured in a way that allows you to focus on the task at hand, focus on the Super Bowl, not worry about a thing. And once the Super Bowl, got done, then we're able to kind of talk and have those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the process, very evident. Like what was going on during the hiring process, how the Saints played it. I think everyone involved played it perfectly. Like sometimes in life, you'll go through things where you make a bunch of decisions, and you look back and you're like, damn, I made like 11 decisions and they were all correct. Sweet. I think the Saints front office should pat themselves on the back because every single decision they made led to the hire, and I think it was the best hire possible. So Process went smooth. Process went perfect. Glad it worked out for Kellen. Glad it worked out for the Saints.
What stood out to you about that, like the in-person meeting when you got to meet that person? How'd that go?
Yeah, you can tell it's a group that's really experienced, tremendous value in that. The continuity is huge. They work really, really well together, and I felt like it was an awesome opportunity to team up.
You just coached Saquon to one of the greatest, helped coach him to one of the greatest running back seasons ever. People are going to look at Alvin and say, can you do the same thing? Just maybe, I know we're asking thoughts about guys you haven't met yet, but just kind of from afar, what you have thought of him.
Tons of respect for Alvin as a player. Obviously, one of the premier players in our league. You know, his ability to play in the pass game and the run game, all the different versatile roles that he can play. A lot of people for a long time have been looking, how can we find an Alvin on our football team? And so that's been a really important piece. It'll continue to be a really important piece, and we're really fortunate to have him.
Let me say this. From a reporter standpoint, that was a great question. I don't know who that was, but when you ask somebody a question and you know there's a way out, like there's a very quick, easy way out. So the quick, easy way out for that question would be Kellen to say, like, I haven't met him. I still got to meet him. I still got to do whatever. The reporter anticipated that, snuck in an answer to that was built into the question. Very smart. So he said the built-in answer to that was, even though you're just getting here, what do you think from afar? So now he's forced Kellen, okay, you can't take that easy way out. You got to kind of give me more details. So that was a very savvy way to answer that or ask that question. Kudos to that reporter. And again, guys, former Pulitzer Prize winning, or not Pulitzer Prize winner, but former reporter at a Pulitzer Prize winning newspaper. Not a big deal. Interviewed Robin Roberts twice, Nancy Pelosi, drove Sinbad to the airport. And as far as Kellen, Alvin is such a unique player. And man, for an offensive guy, what an engine to the team to have. A guy who so good, so versatile. Alvin is built for today's NFL. Like Kellen said, every team in the NFL is trying to find an Alvin Kamara. Every team in the NFL is trying to find a guy who, you need him to get 12 catches, he'll get you 12 catches. You need him to run the ball 25 times, he can do that. Get him in space, run him up the middle, whatever. I have no doubt in my mind that Kellen will try and build this offense around Alvin Kamara. And, I mean, he is no doubt about it, a generational talent. He could not be in a better situation. You know, like I always say, Reggie Bush was 5 years too early. If Reggie Bush was playing in today's NFL, he'd be an MVP. But he was playing in a world where, run up the middle, Sean Alexander, Ricky Williams, just pound it up the middle, see what happens, and that wasn't Reggie's game. But then we saw like Le'Veon Bell and LaDainian Tomlinson and players kind of flesh out that hybrid role, and Alvin's a great example of that. So no doubt in my mind that Alvin will play a huge role in what Kellen is going to build here.
Are you all in on New Orleans and the Saints from the time they first contacted you? You said a lot of nice things about the organization. Were those things you learned in the process or things you knew beforehand?
It was a really attractive place. Every single player and coach who's been here that you get a chance to team up with at other spots, they all talk about how great the New Orleans Saints organization is. And I think that's, those are tremendously valuable pieces. And so when you have an opportunity to meet with them for the first time, all those dots quickly connect and you see how special this place is.
But wait a minute. I thought everybody was saying how the Saints were the worst spot, how they were the worst franchise, how they were the worst front office, how they were the worst ownership. I thought everyone was saying that. Well, I don't know. Maybe they were off.
So you're talking about Alvin Kamara. Have you ever seen a player like a Taysom Hill? And that type of player and all what he could do and how you could utilize him?
Same type of piece. A lot of us have been chasing Taysom Hills for a very, very long time, and ultimately there's one Taysom Hill, and that's very important for everyone to recognize. And so I think that's the exciting part about our roster. We got a lot of really talented players. We got a lot of versatile players who can do a number of things, and that's going to be a huge advantage to us.
Obviously, you were able to focus on the task at hand based on the results of the Super Bowl.
Real quick, Taysom Hill, we'll see what happens as far as like how he recovers from the injury or whatnot, but I don't think it would be crazy if Kellen took the tush-push concept and figured out a way to do that with Taysom. I'm not saying exactly the tush-push, but I think Kellen understands the benefit of having a 90% success rate play on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and goal, whatever. So we were kind of screaming that last year for sure, where it's like, look, it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. There's no reason the Saints can't pick that up 90% of the time. When you are doing that, it changes how you approach those downs and distances. Like Philadelphia, 4th and inches, first quarter, their own 25, they're going to go for it because they know they can get it. And they know, like, why would we punt here? We have a 90% success rate on this play. Let's just do that. So, and that's something the Saints were devoid of the last couple of years. So I would not be surprised at all if we saw Taysom kind of a new role for him with whatever that 90% success rate play, because it's not just a quarterback power. There's more to it. Quarterback power in that situation is not 90%, but the tush push certainly is. So I think Kellen, that's a good example of how Philadelphia will impact how he approaches this.
On the whole playoff run, but I mean, was there a point pretty early in the process where you clearly wanted this job and felt pretty good that did you really not make that decision until after the Super Bowl?
Kind of a unique question, because you do have to be worried about tampering, and you do have to worry about what you're saying here. So if it was me, I would say, nope, nothing happened until after the Super Bowl. Trust me, NFL, nothing happened.
You were hoping this is how it was going to end up throughout the process?
Certainly, I had hopes and dreams of this working out. It was a tremendous opportunity from the first meeting. You quickly saw how special this place was. You really hoped that, if the opportunity presented itself, we'd be fired up. And so it was a longer process, just the way our season played out. But thankful it turned out.
So when it came to having conversations Monday or Tuesday, it was pretty quick. Yeah.
That was very easy. That's a very easy decision, yes.
What a guy.
Kellen, you've been exposed to some really good leaders just throughout your coaching career, Sirianni, McCarthy, Dan Quinn. Just how much do you think being around guys like that helps prepare you for this moment right now?
Yeah, that's a good point. With the Dan Quinn, you got to factor in the coordinators too, like Vic Fangio. He's an offensive guy for sure. But think about who he has been in the war room with on the other side. To think about seeing Dan Quinn, to think about seeing Vic Fangio operate, really work, really get in there, really dig in. Being able to see that is, incredible experience as well. So, yeah, you factor in the head coaches, sure, but also factor in who he is breaking down the defenses with.
Tremendous opportunity when you get to be around a lot of phenomenal head football coaches, and they all are going to present it in their own way. They all have their own styles. I think as long as you're authentic, consistent, and approach it, guys will respect it.
Is that something you're taking notes on too, just kind of how people run a room and just all that stuff?
Absolutely.
You mentioned the taking notes part a couple of times. Is that always just been a mental thing in the back of your mind, or did you actually want to maybe write down one day what your philosophies would be and how you would do things if you were ever to get this opportunity?
Yes, absolutely. I wasn't the tallest, biggest, fastest quarterback in the world. The only way I survived was, I prepared as hard as I possibly could. And so that led me to the coaching side of it. And so I thought that was always really, really important. As quickly as I anticipated, hopefully having a coaching journey as I went through this, you took every example you possibly could. I think there's an element of a growth mindset that we're just continuing to grow, continuing to evolve as people, as coaches. And that's the identity that certainly we want to take as a team as well.
That's probably my favorite answer he has given through this entire thing so far. The fact that, because it's so true, there's a reason why Michael Jordan wasn't a coach, because Michael Jordan, it just came naturally to Michael Jordan. His was all these intangibles, things you cannot possibly give somebody else, things you cannot possibly tell another player of how to do it, right? But then there's players like Kellen, who he said his ability to play the game was not a physical, innate gift. He had to learn and work and prepare. Tom Brady has talked about that, where Tom Brady, how he won was not just innate physical gifts. It was preparing to the highest level, understanding every single play, every single second of every single play, anticipating whatever, and that led him to being as successful as he was. Kellen, and that makes such a great coach, because every player can get better at prep and get better at finding those little intricacies and taking notes or whatever and going that route of winning a football game. That is what you want in your coach. That is, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I would be absolutely stunned if Kellen Moore is not successful as a head coach. I mean, I really would. Like, the way that he's approaching this whole thing, he could not be more of a coach. He could not be more of what you want in your football coach. And, I mean, you get a 36-year-old student of the game coming off of all the experiences he's had. Like, damn. What a hire.
You also mentioned that, your first year, a lot of the players would be your teammates. Was that actually a difficult thing? Did it take a while for them to maybe turn the corner as to, hey, you're the coach now and not my peer?
It's a unique opportunity, but it's a really good opportunity. To team up with a bunch of people. We had tremendous leadership on that team. Again, it's about being authentic, being consistent. At the end of the day, if players feel like you're helping them become the best version of themselves, that's all they can ask for.
Kellen, obviously we've talked about how you're the youngest head coach in the NFL right now, but I feel like we've heard your name as a candidate for years now. Did this whole process play out kind of the way you were thinking it would? Did it take you maybe longer than you thought to get this opportunity?
Again, each opportunity, you get to grow. You get to grow anytime you get to meet with an NFL football organization. You get to meet tremendous people. You get to recognize strengths, recognize growth opportunities for yourself personally, and I take advantage of those, certainly. And so I felt really prepared for this, really excited for it. Felt like it was a perfect setting to team up with Mickey and the rest of this group.
We've seen sometimes first-time head coaches, especially younger ones, sometimes like to have people on their staff who've maybe been in this position before, have a lot of experience and you can lean on. Is that something you hope to add to your own staff?
There will definitely be value to that, yes.
Kelly, can you tell us about the playbook that 17-year-old Kellen Moore had on a Boise State recruiting trip that you showed recruiters? There was some story that had come out about that when you first joined with the Dallas Cowboys. Do you still have that? Can you tell us about it?
I don't think I have it. Maybe my parents do. I was getting recruited by Boise State, and I was showing every possible way that I was going to be prepared if the opportunity presented itself. And so I did every research piece I possibly could and found some playbooks and tried to study.
How much of that, I know you say you don't have the playbook anymore, but how much of some of those core tenets at that point that you started to research still exist in your playbook today?
Certainly. You lean on your foundations. You lean on your foundations of my dad's a high school football coach, the wonderful opportunity to be at Boise State with Chris Peterson, one of the best college football head coaches in history. Those are foundational pieces, and those will never change on you.
Kellen, you mentioned your dad a couple of times. What did you learn from your dad?
It's really all about building the right environment. Building an environment that allows every player, coach, and staff member to be their best. And we had a Friday Night Lights setting in Prosser, Washington. It was a special place. Those were the guys that I looked up to. But the culture was really, really special. Those guys worked really, really hard, harder than any other team they faced, and they had the confidence to challenge every single team, no matter how big they were. We felt like our little small town had a chance.
You mentioned in a football family. How did that impact you and your brother? I mean, you started at an early age, I assume, learning about the game. You feel accelerated in a way as a 36-year-old because of that?
Everyone likes to say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert, so that's a famous book. Certainly I felt like being around it for a long time led me into the opportunities that I've been presented. I've been preparing for this my entire life, and I feel ready.
I mean, that's a good question, and it kind of is true. Like, the more you listen to this, and listen, like, it's one thing for me, and we've done a ton, obviously. I mean, I've probably done, 10 hours of content on Kellen Moore in the last couple of weeks here. But it's one thing for me to assume all this stuff and to talk about it from a distance and to say, like, this is what I think. This is what I think of this guy. This is what I think of his experiences. This is what I think of whatever, his mindset and his, this and this. To hear it and see it from him, I mean, it's the most apparent thing in the world. He truly is, like, whether it's just by happenstance or, and another book by Malcolm Gladwell. So Malcolm Gladwell, who coined the 10,000 hours kind of thing. But another book, I think it's called Outliers. I know it is. It's called Outliers. He talks about how a lot of the times the best of the best, or, the highest level achievers, a lot of what they go through that allows them to be the highest level achievers is by accident. Bill Gates is an example. He's part of the book. Bill Gates just so happened to be the son of, I think, a library. I think his mom worked in a library, who just so happened to be the library that got the first computer in his hometown. So he was just so happened to be around computers way earlier than anyone else his age, just because of that situation. And sometimes it takes a serendipitous moment like that. Kellen Moore's experience and Kellen Moore's life, like when you're listening to it, it is crazy how it's like, all right, football coach, dad, small town Washington, that's his upbringing, goes to Boise State, just so happens to have Chris Peterson as the head coach, who, is one of the winningest head coaches in college football history. Just so happens to have that. Then goes to the NFL, has the opportunity to go from a player to a coach within a year. Just so happens to be where Jason Garrett gets fired. Mike McCarthy comes in. Just so happens to be where Dan Quinn is coaching. Just so happens to then go to LA where he meets Brandon Staley. Just so happens then that Brandon Staley gets fired, which means Kellen Moore gets fired, which means Kellen Moore just so happens to be available to go to Philadelphia, who just so happens to be having a horrible year, who needs a coordinator, just so happens to go there, and then wins the Super Bowl. Oh, and LOL, same timing, the Saints are in their situation to hire Kellen Moore. It's like, when you look at everything that happened in those 36 years for Kellen, it truly is like a Frankenstein's monster, like an absolute perfect experience builder to be a head coach. And I don't want to say prodigy or any of that stuff, but I mean, seeing it and hearing it, everything led to this.
How much did you mentioned your admiration for Nick Sirianni and this whole process that you went through this whole season? What did you kind of learn through this year, and how much did actually winning a Super Bowl kind of help prepare you for this, you think?
Yeah, as far as Nick, tremendous leader. His ability to adapt the leadership side of this is really special. Every season you're going to have challenges. Every season you're going to have obstacles, and we're going to have to handle those ups and downs throughout a season on a personal level, on a collective level as a team. And I think having the ability to adapt throughout the season is really, really important. Being consistent still at the same time with your core values is really important. I learned a lot of that from Nick.
Kellen, did you have a visit here, like when you were coming into the draft? I believe I heard that somewhere.
Yes, so my first NFL experience was a 30 visit to the New Orleans Saints. And so 2012, when I was coming in as a player, my first visit was here, so it's pretty funny kind of coming full circle, 13, 14 years later, whatever it is.
What do you remember about that visit?
Joe Lombardi was the quarterback coach. He was the one that was showing me around. Chase Daniel was kind of my host, so to speak. And so it was a fun opportunity just to get to know the NFL and get to know this place. Again, quickly recognized how valuable it was.
Friday Night Lights a couple times in the last couple weeks. Are you more of a book, movie, or TV? What was your?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm gonna go TV. TV. There's a little more depth to that. There's just one movie. There's a lot of episodes of the TV.
Kellen, All-Pro offensive tackle Lane Johnson said he has a great football mind and he is a football genius. Do you view yourself as a genius?
I view myself as a guy who is continuing to learn and grow, and I think that's really, really important. This league is always going to challenge you. As soon as you feel like you have it, there's going to be another challenge on the horizon. And I think it's continuing to evolve, continuing to grow, continue to find what advantages we can have as a football team. We're going to continue to grow each and every year.
Yeah, if anyone ever calls themselves a genius, it's always a red flag besides me. But good question though from Bobby, but that was the Cajun Cannon with a solid question there.
Notes that you mentioned earlier, do you still have them, or are you shipping them to Orlando, or did you live
You have a lot of notes everywhere, and certainly technology allows you to have them close by nowadays.
Now, did you ever? You say you learned from failure. I know in one of your previous conversations. Did you ever learn from failure, being too stubborn and trying to stick with the philosophy and then adapt it from there, or did some?
So in Dallas, there was a lot of conversation at the time that he was too pass happy. I think that's what Mike's trying to ask.
Someone teach you early on not to be stubborn and to match what you have.
Absolutely. We all go through stubbornness at times. We all go through, again, we have great confidence in certain schemes, certain players, certain structures, and you got to continue to grow and evolve. And so I think that's the cool opportunity. When you go to a couple different organizations, you get to learn how to adapt.
Very true.
You're not going to get it right every single time, but you're going to be able to grow from that opportunity and find what works best for the next opportunity.
Was there an example that stands out of anything where you tried to stick with something?
That's a great question. I think, again, as you go through the seasons in Dallas, when you lose a Dak Prescott for a season, for an extended period of the season, you learn how to adapt quickly and understand that you can't play the same styles week in and week out. When you lose, a Tyron Smith, a difference maker, you have to adjust. And so when you're young, you have a lot of confidence in things, you fail, and then you get to grow.
Kellen, there's a long history of offensive success here. Obviously, what Sean and Drew were able to do here so long. Do you have any recollection of just like watching that? Did that have any imprint on you as a coach, as a player, or anything like that?
Absolutely, huge impact. Joe Lombardi was our offensive coordinator when I was a player in Detroit. Learned that system, grew in that system. Certainly a lot of that still has a huge impact on what we've done the last couple stops along the way. And so, there's certainly been a huge influence. I think a lot of us throughout this league, tons of respect and appreciation for what Drew and Sean did here. It set a firm foundation, set the pinnacle of what the standard is for this place, and certainly for offensive football throughout this league.
I mean, that is part of that serendipitous situation I'm talking about, where Kellen Moore is coming up through the ranks, right? He's coming up as a quarterback. He's playing at Boise State. He's entering the NFL. He's already telling you he is studying everything. Like, he's studying offense. He is studying the NFL. He's preparing to be a coach who just so happens to be the most cutting-edge, dynamic, innovative offense at that time is the Saints. Like, during, what do you say, 2012 was when he first came to the Saints for the draft? That is, that is highest of highs. Like, you're 5-6 years into this of the Saints just dominating offensively. So I guarantee you that Kellen Moore is studying the hell out of that at the time. Then he talks about Joe Lombardi being the OC. Again, there's no doubt that Sean Payton and that offense helped kind of show Kellen, okay, maybe this is how you do it. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is how the offense should go. Now, granted, things change, and Sean Payton's offense back then isn't what you want to run now necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if that is the foundation of his offense, especially when you look at what they did in Boise State. You look at what they did in Boise State, you look at how the Saints were playing at that time when he enters the NFL, and then you look at how his system was in Dallas. I don't think it's any surprise that he was a let's throw the football kind of system. Now, again, that's obviously changes, but no doubt that had a huge imprint on Kellen Moore.
You said during Super Bowl week that every player has superpowers, and that a big part of your approach is to try to maximize and lead with those superpowers. How do you go about identifying those now for this roster?
It's going to take a lot of interaction with the players, and it's going to take a lot of film study, and then ultimately we get on the field, we get to team up on this, and we get to grow together.
Is this a lot of forgive me, just these one-on-one conversations, full team meetings? What's the process?
Absolutely. I think it's really important that we get to know each other in a one-on-one setting. This is a tremendous group. We're excited to team up on this, but there is that personal level that I'm really excited to have.
Kellen, when you're putting your staff together, how important is it that you've had maybe past relationships, whether it's a position coach or a coordinator, that I know this individual, I can trust them and maybe go from there? How important is that?
There's tremendous value for experience when you've worked with someone, just for continuity's sake. But I think the blessing and wonderful thing that you learn is as you go through this journey, going to Los Angeles, going to Philly, there's a lot of coaches that if I just stuck in Dallas, I would have never met, would have never got to team up with. And so you understand that as you go through this process, you're going to have an opportunity to meet and team up with coaches that maybe you haven't done it with. And they're going to be really special, and they're going to have a huge impact on us.
How long did you think it was going to take for you to become a head coach? Did you give yourself a deadline, like 40 or?
I had no timeline.
You mentioned.
I remember, it's funny when what's the old saying? It's something like the biggest joke or the easiest way to make God smile is to tell him your plan or something like that. There's some old adage, and man, it's so true. You put all these funny numbers on and timelines and stuff that they don't really mean anything. It's just I want to do this by the time I'm 30, or I want to do this by the time I'm 22, or this by the time I'm 40, or whatever. And then life throws you just an absolute curveball, and so yeah, you do have to kind of just take things as they are, and experiences and opportunities come and go, and get, to a certain extent, you do have to kind of just roll with the punches.
About staying authentic to yourself when you're in a league that is, has a lot of alphas, so to say. I mean, Dan Campbell had a press conference where he talked about biting kneecaps. How hard is that sometimes to maybe say, this is who I am and this will resonate eventually?
Yeah, I think everyone respects authenticity, being yourself. We understand that there's challenges associated with this job. It's a leadership job first and foremost, and it's very, very important. You're going to have to lead in a lot of different ways. You're going to have to challenge people. You're going to have to stress people. You're going to have to put people in challenging situations, and so we're going to go through that.
Would you intend to stay as a play caller, as a head coach, or was that kind of up in the air?
Yes, I'd call plays.
There you go.
When the Eagles practicing here all Super Bowl week, was it something that it felt like an opportunity that was meant to be? And did you get a sneak peek of your office at all?
I like the facility. I enjoyed the new cafeteria, the indoor, walking around. Obviously, you saw how tremendous it certainly was.
Take time for 2 more, please.
You mentioned your brother earlier. Do the business? Do you intend to work with him here? Or?
I'd love to work with him one day. Obviously, he's in a tremendous spot, in a tremendous role. They've had a ton of success at Missouri the last couple of years, and so he'll have great opportunities moving forward.
Dallas Goddard said the other day, he's just talking about how sad it was and he left and he wanted you to come back and stuff. Just kind of what is the impact on players to just say that about you and you're moving on?
This is a football game, but there's so many personal elements to this thing. When you get a team up with people, you build lifelong relationships. People had a huge impact on you. I feel very fortunate to have gone to Philadelphia. We had tremendous leaders on that team, tremendous people. Those relationships will last forever.
Also kind of point to your age, we talked about that a little bit, but Sean Payton had a lot of success here as kind of a young play caller in that path. I know you've been compared to him relatively early in your career too. Do you make that comparison? Do you embrace it? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, I think in general, everyone has so much respect for what Sean's done in this league, and tons of respect, and certainly the standard's been built based off his foundation, and we love that. We want to embrace that, and so feel fortunate. Maybe Mickey has a type, I don't know, but it's worked out well.
Take one more if anybody has one. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Come up with a photo. Kellen?
How to use auto.
I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I could not feel better about the Saints after watching that interview. I really couldn't. Let me get Flo off the screen here. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I mean, hey, you gotta get your money how you get it. But I feel great about what. I mean, what are we doing here? Now I got Nick. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? For 36 years old, I mean, if you don't feel good after watching that, what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, well-spoken, had an answer for everything, authentic as hell. I mean, he is who he is. I'll say that. Like, he's an authentic guy. There was. I thought that was as good of an opening press conference as you can possibly want in a head coach. Is it a guarantee that Kellen Moore is going to succeed as the Saints head coach? No. Okay, obviously not. But I am very bullish on this guy. I'm very bullish on the New Orleans Saints moving forward. I mean, you talk about come in at the best possible time. Saints are reeling, worst season they've had in 20 years, and then he rolls in here, and you talk about a fresh start. Energy. I mean, I love it. I don't want to keep y'all too much longer. It's an hour and 20-minute video, but wow. I am floored. I am wowed. I am impressed. Unreal stuff from Kellen Moore. I'm going to have to go buy a jersey. I'm going to have to go buy a Kellen Moore jersey. I don't know what else to do with myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you made it this long, if you made it to the end, let me know in the comments below, please. Thank you very much for watching. Unreal. I love Kellen Moore like a brother. I will see you in the next video.